Hi guys, I've got a fun game to share with you today. I know that recently I've been really focusing on principled chess, okay? So following best practice, following the rules from the opening, control of the center, get those center pawns out, develop all my minor pieces, get my king castle to safety, centralize my rooks before going into battle. This game, all of that stuff goes out of the window because it's based on the gambit line, and very often what you do with gambits is you're trying to knock your opponent out of their comfort zone, maybe mess up their position and create opportunities for attacks. So what you're doing is you very often sacrifice a pawn in return for rapid development and opportunities. So I'm playing black in this game, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so white opens with d4 and I respond with f6, and c4 was played, and in this situation I'm aware of this gambit called the Fajarowicz gambit, something like that, and it involves playing e5. That's offering up the e-pawn, which white then gladly accepts with an attack on the knight, thinking he's got good tempo. Now if I were to play here knight to g4, that's known as the Budapest gambit, but what I did in this situation is I play knight to e4, and this is the Fajarowicz gambit. Okay, so there's already a semi-open d-file here, and white's pawns are looking a little overextended. Okay, so white plays knight to d2, attacking my knight. Clearly he didn't want to bring it to c3, because then if takes, then he's got these horrible double isolated pawns on the c file, and he's looking very open on there. But this looks solid. Okay, so I thought for a while over my next move, and I decided to go for a kind of sacrificial line. So I play queen to h4. Clearly the f-pawn can't move because it's pinned, and I know that g3 is very likely, and I know that if white plays g3, which he does, I can't defend my knight very well. I've got queen to g4, but then that invites f3, and the knight is going to fall. So I thought about that, and I thought, let's go for it anyway. So I capture with a knight. White can't take back with h2 because that would lose the rook, so he recaptures with the f-pawn. And now what I want you to be looking at is white's pawn structure. There's some kind of forced moves here. He didn't have to make all these moves, but he's thinking, I'm getting advantage, I'm getting material and such. So, but look at the state of these pawns now, and how is he going to make his king safe? Castling kingside, I think, now is probably out of the question. Castling queenside is looking very difficult as well, but probably slightly better. He might be able to tuck his king away there in b1. So I decide to keep the pressure up with the crazy queen and move it across to d4. White develops a piece, attacking the queen and defending the loose pawn on e5. All looks very good and principled so far. I move my queen back now to b6, where it can still have some influence in the game, and white makes another knight move. Not entirely sure of the reason behind that. You really ought to be thinking about castling now. He could maybe move his bishop to g2, castle kingside as well. So I come in with an attack with a bishop. White moves the knight into the way, and I move the bishop back here with the idea of throwing the bishop into f2, which would be a beautiful checkmate and smothered mate. The king can't move, can't go anywhere. White can defend this. He's got a couple of options. One is to capture with a knight on b3. The other one is to move his other knight to e4, which would be simultaneously attacking the bishop and defending the f2 square. White decides to go in with an exchange. Queen takes back, And now let's reassess the situation again. So white is a whole piece up at this point. He's actually a bishop up. But his bishops aren't in the game, his rooks aren't in the game, and his king is uncastled and extremely vulnerable. Okay, so I'm thinking at this point I've got some compensation for my piece that I've sacrificed, because I've definitely got lots of attacking options. Okay, so white manoeuvres the knight back round to protect that e5 pawn again. You see he's having to respond and react a lot, but in doing that, of course, he's left the c4 pawn vulnerable, so I snatch that with my crazy queen. Then he plays e3 with a discovered attack on the queen, but it's not really a killer attack, so I simply move across there to e4. White moves the bishop to g2, preparing a possible discovered attack on the queen. So what I have to do here is I have to consider, can this knight move with another attack? The ideal thing would be to move with check, or to attack a rook or a higher value piece, potentially then winning the exchange or even winning the queen. But there's no good square for that knight to go to, so I'm fairly comfortable. So I decide now is a good time to castle myself, and rub white's nose in it a little bit. White then plays b3, and I decide to fianchetto my light squared bishop on that long diagonal. So it's looking at the h1 rook. White moves his bishop to b2, now looking down here at g7 in front of my king, which is nice. So I fianchetto my queen's bishop as well, and now he moves his rook out of the way to getting the rook off of that long diagonal, and also defending the bishops. So now, because otherwise if the knight moved, it's actually pinned, so the queen could take the bishops, and now he's defending it, which all makes sense. But again, just look how exposed and vulnerable white's king is in the middle of the board. So I bring my knight out, that's then connecting my rooks, which is a good safety principle. White now comes in with an attack, a double attack on the queen, so my queen has to move. But the e3 pawn is undefended, so I snatch that pawn, and white's position is now pretty hopeless, although he's still technically ahead on material. But queen moves into the way, I just dive in and grab that rook, and that is actually the end of the game. My opponent resigns. So the point here is that I would never want to play that kind of opening against a very strong player, because they would tear me to pieces, and they probably wouldn't react and respond in the same way that my opponent did on that game. But rules are there to be broken, and sometimes you can have a lot of fun breaking them and taking your opponent's position apart and just causing some carnage. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's a game that I enjoy playing. I hope you enjoyed looking at it, and I'll see you in the next video.